Okay, hello YouTube. In this video we're going to be covering another sideline that people can play against you when you're trying to play your open Sicilian. After knight f3, we're going to have them go ahead and play the move pawn to b6, and we're going to try to figure out exactly how we need to face this. So if you like content like this and you want to see more of it, please click on that subscribe button and please click on your notification icon. So if you're anything like me, you probably don't see b6 all that often. And it's not something that you're going to be facing on a regular basis. So you probably just want some really basic, simple line. Now, really, as far as I can tell, kind of the idea behind b6 is to play something kind of similar to a Paulson Kahn, to play like a passive kind of Paulson Kahn setup, without having to play the normal theoretical moves that you would see in a Paulson Kahn. So my recommendation is to either just play d4 right away or to play knight to c3. Now, the game that we're following here is Anand versus Brook-Crow that was played in the Bastille in 2005. And in that game, Anand played knight to c3. It's also possible to simply play d4, and this move should yield pretty similar results. After, say, c takes d4, knight takes d4, bishop b7, we're going to have a relatively similar position after knight c3. We're going to have something like a direct transposition. Another thing about d4 is there's kind of an interesting thing here. Sometimes people will play this as black and they'll try to do something quirky. They'll try to play something like d6. This move is actually just a mistake. We can actually just take this pawn, and they can't take back towards the center, which is probably why they wanted to do something like this, because they're actually just losing their rook immediately. So this is something to kind of keep in mind if black is trying to do something really quirky and really goofy with the move b6, that these types of things are not possible. So just something to keep in mind. But the move knight c3 is just kind of maybe a little bit of a cleaner theoretical move. And then we have bishop b7, then d4, then cd4, we have knight takes d4. Now we have a6, and now we're starting to kind of see the idea. We're trying to get to this Paulson Kahn setup with e6, d6, queen c7, etc. But we didn't have to go through the whole Paulson Kahn move order. Now, in this case, Anand responds pretty well. He says, okay, I'm going to put this bishop on the long diagonal. I'm going to play g3. Then after e6, bishop g2, queen c7, he's just castles, d6, and then he plays f4. So his idea is basically he wants to play f4 and he wants to play e5 relatively quickly. But he's able to actually finish his development before he does that, which is kind of cool. So knight d7, he plays bishop e3, he plays rook e1, and then he shuffles that bishop back to f2, basically just trying to reinforce this e5 push. And if and when this e5 push comes, it's going to come with a lot of force, and it's going to come with a lot of consequences for black's position, and black walks into it face first. He plays knight c5, and this completely allows the move pawn to e5, which should be considered one of the primary threats in this position for white. So Anand plays it immediately, pawn to e5. We have d-e5, bishop takes b7, knight takes d7, and then we have f takes e5, this knight retreats, and then a very cool tactical move after queen g4, hitting g7, castles kingside. White has this pretty amazing resource. You can pause the video and see if you can find it. So the move is knight d5, just an absolutely spectacular move, just completely destroys black's position in every way. The knight can't be captured. If e takes d5, we have knight f5 here, and this is completely winning. We're threatening mate on g7, and if we block that mate, we can play knight takes d7, king g7, and then bishop d4 is a completely winning position for white in every possible way. White is just completely destroying black at this point. The threat is pawn to e6 check, and if white is allowed to follow through with that threat, the position will be absolutely devastating for black. And there's not much black can actually do to stop that threat. So, in the game, he didn't take the knight, but of course not taking the knight is just as bad. He played the move queen d8, and then we have the move knight to c6, just forking queen and bishop, and Anand picks up the queen, and then his technique moving forward was absolutely perfect. He prevents any of black's pieces from moving. He plays e6, gains space for his queens and rooks. He exchanges, grabs a pawn, and just exercises totally brutal technique that eventually forces Bacro to resign. So, anyways, if we go back, this is basically how we should be playing against this setup. We should be playing in the footsteps of Anand. We should basically be playing d4. And again, we can play that either on the third move, or we can play that, we can play that on the third move, or we can play that on the fourth move, like Anand does. But either way, this is going to be the plan. This is going to be the setup. We're going to be doing this, and we're going to be threatening to play pawn to e5, and we're just going to have a nice solid position in the center. And these positions are just they're almost like transpositions into the Paulson Kahn. They're very similar. They're very similar to positions that you might see out of a Paulson Kahn, and this is just a very easy way to play against the move pawn to b6 without having to memorize a whole lot of extra theory. You can just kind of take what you play against the Paulson Kahn, a very close facsimile to what you play against the Paulson Kahn, and you can just kind of port it over into here, which is how I handle some of these more rare moves like b6. And actually, that's I do something kind of similar. I port another one of my openings over, is how I handle playing against the O'Kelly variation as well. So anyways, I hope that you found this video helpful. I hope you learned something new about chess, and I hope you learned some ideas that you can use in your own games. Thank you very much for watching.